something peculiar and possibly disturbing is happening. That if you look at the big symbols of knowledge in our culture, the sort of physical manifestations of knowledge, things like, say, encyclopedias, where you were, in my generation, if you had the physical encyclopedia in your house, that was a mark that your family cared about knowledge. Encyclopedias are, in one way or another, they're dissolving, falling over, they're in deep trouble, as we all know. Or newspapers, which traditionally have been a symbol of well-informed democracy. They're getting disaggregated, they're getting reaggregated, they're just, and nobody knows what's going to happen. Nobody knows. And likewise in the library world, which I've actually been in for a couple of years, the same thing. Every librarian is concerned about what's going to happen to libraries. Here we have large physical buildings in communities. They look like Greek temples typically, and they are an embodiment of the community's commitment to knowledge. And we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know if they're going to be there or what the space is going to be used for. So you take the things that are the most solid representations of our commitment to knowledge, the instantiation of knowledge, and suddenly over the past 15 years, in just 15 years, these are old institutions. In just 15 years, they're gone, they're on their way out, they're transforming, they're at issue. It's pretty serious. Something important is going on with knowledge. And they fell over at the touch of a very small bit of technology, which is, granted, embedded in a much bigger one, but a hyperlink. It's basically links that have done this. Just a little thing, and massive institutions now are in question, at issue. So it's sort of interesting to ask, why did this happen? Who would have predicted that over the course of 15 years, these majors, nobody would have, I don't think, and yet it's been happening. This is particularly important because knowledge in the West, and I'm only talking about the West in this, knowledge in the West has made a particularly important promise to us, which is embodied in this quotation from Senator Moynihan, which is everyone is entitled to his own opinion, not his own facts. And this quotation is coming up more and more, and I think it's because it's responding to fear. And it's comforting. It makes a certain comforting promise, which is a very old promise of knowledge, which is lots of different opinions, but we can all come together if we just pay attention to the facts, we engage in the processes of knowledge, and we can come together, reasonable people. Knowledge will rescue us from the chaos and dissension that we see around us. That is an ancient promise of knowledge, reinforced by the Enlightenment. And so knowledge is very important. It has made this claim, which now I think may also be an issue. So very quickly, because we all know what knowledge has been, what has it been? Well, in one sense, we have taken knowledge as being a representation of the world of a particular sort. We do it step by step. We discover facts, and you can tell the what do you call it? The angle aspect ratio is slightly off. But you'll have to by the time I hit about hour 2.5, your brains will start compensating for the aspect ratio, and that will look like a circle. Around slide 213. Something to look forward to. So, knowledge is a representation of the world. It's built up step by step, whether it's by facts or steps of logic, in which we nail, and yes, this is the third metaphor in a row, so I'm wildly mixing metaphors, without apology. Each of these steps, each of these bricks is nailed down. It's settled. Knowledge is something that is settled bit by bit as we build up this picture of the world. And it has, from the very beginning of knowledge, which conventionally is traced to the ancient Greeks, to Athens, it's been a matter of winnowing. That whether it's winnowing through the onrush and chaos of sensation, or of the sort of noise of the mob that has so many different opinions. You need to figure out which one is true and worthy of belief, justified true belief. Plato's definition, which has stood with us for 2,500 years, knowledge has been a type of winnowing. Which implies most of what we see, most of what we hear is not knowledge, and it's up to us to filter and to find out. So we have devised strategies to deal with what has been the most basic fact from the very beginning, which is the world, we have understood, the world is way bigger than our skulls. And our skulls simply don't scale. As we learn more and more, our skulls don't get any bigger. And we've known that from the beginning, and so we've devised a set of strategies for dealing with it. And pretty successfully, I would say. So one of the key strategies is to enable people to break off a brain-sized chunk of the world, and then to know it thoroughly, to master it. There's a whole gender politics around mastery. So break off a brain-sized chunk of the world, know it thoroughly, master it, and become an expert. So that we can go to the experts, or the books that they write, or encyclopedia articles, we can go to them with questions, we can ask a question, and we can get an answer. And the important thing is, the brilliance of the system is that we can then stop asking. If we don't trust the expert, we don't think that, we have a backup system of credentials. And so we say, I don't think that, oh, I see, you've got a degree from wherever, okay, now, or you wrote the book, and I didn't know that. So we've devised knowledge as a series of stopping points. It's a system of stopping points with a backup system of stopping points called credentials. And that's where the efficiency of the system comes from. The fact that you can ask a question, be quite confident in most cases that you're getting a good answer, and stop asking. You don't have to redo the research, you don't have to redo the experiment. You've got your answer, you can move on, develop new knowledge, apply the knowledge, and so forth. It's an amazingly productive system, an amazingly efficient system that's made us the dominant species on the planet. So it works really, really well. But what we should be aware of is that this idea of knowledge is not natural. It's not how knowledge itself is. It's how knowledge is when its medium is paper. And paper is wonderful. We all love paper. We all love books. Blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to bother defending books because, we all love books. At least we say we do. Nevertheless, books are great at some things and really, really bad at some others. Books are profoundly small. Libraries are tiny. Most of the world's books don't fit into any library. Libraries don't scale. Books don't scale to get big enough to cover the topic. Every author leaves out more than she or he puts in. You carefully think about what the reader needs, because books are so disconnected that you have to give the reader everything she needs within this volume, because there's no real possibility she's going to get interested, want to pursue it outside the book, put the book down, get on a bus, go to the big city, go to the big library, hope that the book is there, go to the shelf and it's not there. You know the reader's not going to do that, except in the most extraordinary cases, which is to say, basically, never. We don't do that. You don't do that. I don't do that. Researchers don't do that. Books are stopping points, and of course they come out of the social milieu. Of course they come out of that. They're not invented by people living alone in steamer trunks, right? They come out of a culture, of course. And they make reference to that culture, and they have footnotes to that culture, but footnotes are stopping points too. It's very, very rare, even for the most dedicated researcher, to actually look up the work in the footnote. It happens, but it's rare. Generally, when we consult a footnote, it's to we wonder about something in the text, and like a credential, we look at the footnote and say, I see, it came from wherever, and we stop. So even the links within paper books are usually operating as stopping points. It's not an accident that knowledge is that way. It's reflecting the limitations and the strengths of the medium that it has, and it's had paper. And so books and libraries they're a representation of the world. They're stuck between covers, but it's some representation of the world that are highly filtered. Very few works make it through the initial filter of getting published, and once you're writing it, you are removing everything that doesn't get your reader from the starting point to the end point. Anything that gets in the way, even if it's highly entertaining and diverting or enlightening, doesn't help the reader get to the conclusion. It's got to go, because books are so small. Once you publish a book, the ink's on the paper. It's not coming off the paper. It's just not. And so it's settled. Books are an establishment of a stand. And so knowledge also in the West has been about settling things. We don't say that something is knowledge until most people have agreed about it. Or put differently, until we've marginalized those who disagree about it. And books are, because of their page nature, they work more or less in a series of steps. That's how you write a book. This is not a requirement. It's not like a paper God said you must work. But this is the way it's developed in our culture. That we take the series of pages as sequential, and we expect a series of steps that will lead the reader along through the path, on the path. Keep the reader on the tour bus until it's over. So knowledge has been conditioned by the medium that we've had for it, for all of that medium's strengths.